on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the broadcast.
Connecting the community through gospel.
Welcome back. Welcome back.
Welcome back to our listeners. We had a little brief, we need an additional time today. We had so much to discuss today. So we hope that you're still with us. I think where I left off from Mr. Doom was this a restaurant that I was at
Right.
this past last week. And so as I think when I left off, I was talking about, I could see if I had not actually, I had gotten out of the car and started to proceed to go into the restaurant without and didn't have a decaf in my car, but that was not the case. So there was a couple cars that were beside me. They had a decaf in the back of their car. Did not have a hanging decal, but it was one on the back of the car. So, I forgot I had told him, I said, and when I got inside the restaurant, I was furious at that time. I had pre-ordered my food. I actually forgot to pay for the food. I had left the restaurant and got back in my car and realized that I had not paid for my food. And so, but I spoke to the owner there, and I was so upset because, and she assured me that they didn't condone that type of behavior, and that person did not work for them. They were there actually working on some type of equipment or something like that. I don't know who it was. I know that they went back into their building in an area where customers don't go into.
Right.
And so, as I explained to her, that I felt that he approached me because I was black, because he couldn't tell whether I was handicapped or not because I had not gotten out of the car. But I didn't appreciate it at all, and we're still dealing with these type of issues where you're being targeted,
Right.
because I'm black. I'm not at liberty to park in a handicapped parking space, and he could tell that I was not handicapped because of how, I don't know.
Wow.
When I'm still sitting in my car.
Right.
So I was very furious, and I do understand people parking in handicapped parking space because I see it all the time, and it makes me angry because I do have a handicap decal, and I have a handicap decal for a purpose, because I do have limited walking, and so it do makes you upset when people that don't have one. But when I see that they're actually out of their car, the car is nobody's in the car, they don't have a handicap decap. But for me to be sitting in my car,
Right.
and you approach me and tell me I need to move because that parking space is for people that are handicapped, how do you know that I'm not handicapped?
Right.
So,
Yeah, I know that was very contentious. You probably was on fire.
I told you I forgot to pay for my food. I had got the food and walked out the restaurant and got in my car. And when I got ready to pull off, I said, oh my goodness, I didn't even pay for the food. And so when I, got back out of the car and I went and paid for the food, and then she didn't give me a receipt. And I was like, look, I had to go back in. You need to give me my receipt because, I don't know whether they, but it's crazy.
And it's just a form of discrimination. And so, we're not exempt simply because we know, the laws and those kind of things. We aren't exempt as far as having to deal with discrimination. And so we know that there are other people who many times are discriminated against and really don't know, their rights are being violated
Right.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And they just go along with what happened. But we got to all be vigilant, and an injustice anywhere, is an injustice
It's a threat
everywhere.
to justice everywhere. So,
And so,
it's just crazy. People still have this mentality, and, you know, uh, it's a shame, but people do. And I think I'm going to follow up with a letter to assure them that I did not appreciate it. I want it was one owner there, but there was actually a partnership. But hopefully he won't do that to anybody else. I don't know who he was, but I think he was an employee. I don't know.
absolutely. And I think also one of the the things we're gonna talk about in the future, which seems to be a big topic these days, is AI, artificial intelligence,
Hmm.
and how artificial intelligence can actually affect the truth.
Hmm.
Because now you can have a person's, through artificial intelligence, they can have an image of you or myself and have someone else speaking like it's us.
Right, and I saw that on
Yeah.
the news, the media, this weekend. I think, yeah,
And so
that's gonna be a big thing. Yeah,
that's going to be really challenging, because it's already bad enough that we hear certain things from government officials and others, and you have to verify the information to see if they're
hmm,
telling you the truth.
hmm,
We know that Fox News had an incident and an issue where they were sued by a voting
right,
by a voting machine company,
right, right,
and they were actually knowing the truth, telling a lie. And
and
so,
yeah, putting something else out there and knowing that it was not the truth, and so yeah, that kind, and it's considered slanderous, and it can actually
right,
harm someone's reputation. And yeah, that was very serious, and they should be held. People got to be held accountable for things like that.
exactly. And so, what we'll probably be having to deal with, particularly when it comes to voting and campaigning, where a lot of people will say, "Well, I didn't say that."
Right, right,
It was through artificial intelligence. Somebody, used my identity and said some things.
right,
And so it's going to be very interesting to see how the law is going to pertain to situations such as that.
right,
It's going to be quite interesting to see. And so it's with everything that kind of evolves. You always have issues. You have some pros and some cons to it,
right, right,
because that's another way of people doing fraudulent things, and I'm sure it also can be a big factor in, as it relates to what do you call it, stealing a person's
identity. Yeah,
identity fraud, yeah,
right,
and
right.
those kinds of things. So
Yeah. So we're dealing with some very difficult things
right,
that could affect people's identity, and that's how I see a lot of times Ms. Doom, they put stuff on TV and people actually watch. They
right,
sit and they watch for things like this to be able to um, to be able to steal people's identity. And I sometimes I just think they just put too much on in the media and TV and different things like that because it give people ideas.
right.
And so yeah, I don't know. I was a little late coming in. I don't know whether you talked about the border or not. I know you mentioned it.
No, we didn't get into it. We got you just mentioned it briefly,
Yeah.
and we do know that, of course, this particular bill that
Right, that the law that they are, I think the Republicans voted heavily
right,
on that, and that did pass. So there are going to be some changes with the border. It's just kind of it's gotten out of hand. I'm one to our organization is an organization that does not we frown on discrimination
absolutely,
and injustices and prejudice injustices, and we do know that people, we have people that are immigrants that come over here with asylums and different things like that. But you got to take care of home, though. We got people that that are in situations and you know they're not taken care of here in the United States that are citizens. I do, remember President Obama spoke on this when he was in office about, even with the illegal aliens, making them legal to be able for them to be able to pay taxes, because a lot of those are they don't they're not able to receive any type of benefits
right,
uh, being illegal, and so but uh, that has not happened yet. We still have a lot of illegal aliens still working in the United States that are that don't pay taxes and some of the things that concerns me as a citizen is that we have to pay income tax, we have to pay state taxes, and different things like that. And you have people that here they make they're earning free money,
Right.
and that's one of the things President Obama was talking about, and our government still um, has not moved on that. And so, I just how does it affect Americans with in some of the things that you know like we having to pay taxes, we're having to work, taxes are being taken out of our paychecks um, every time that we get paid. We're having to
Right.
file income tax, state tax. We're having to, they taxed us to death. And
Right.
so, but we have people that are here in the United States that do not pay any type of taxes, and their money is just tax free, and they're living better than a lot of our people that have worked and paved the way, that are now
Exactly.
joining Social Security, and they're in a situation where some of our people that have worked all their life are still living under the poverty, below the poverty level. So, that's a concern. As at the same time, we don't want to discriminate or cause any type of um, social injustice or prejudice upon anyone, but that is a concern that people do have. Where we're here, people that are citizens and are actually struggling.
Right.
And
And you also made mention of the fact, okay, if a person is here undocumented and they have a child while they're here in the U.S., that
right,
child has
that child
becomes a U.S.
automatically becomes
citizen.
a U.S. citizen. We do know that uh, the parents don't have access to health care. They
Right.
do pay for the delivery of the child. That's something that it used to be a point, Mr. Dumas, where, and because I'm saying I'm able to speak on it because I've worked at a healthcare facility for 20 something years. But it used to be a time where people that were illegal were able to get health care.
Right.
They were able to get prenatal care. They were able to get health care. And so I think it was under President Clinton's administration that stopped. That they only paid for certain for they're not being paid for like prenatal care or anything like that. But once they have the child, and they will pay for the delivery. But once that child is born, that child automatically becomes a citizen of the United States.
Wow.
And so yeah, but I'm just, when you look at the TV and you just see all you know immigrants trying to get into the United States because of either safety or uh, better living, or it's sad. It's out of control, and it's just sad. And you're hearing that the different governors, saying that it's costing so much money for their city, and they're not getting the help from the government to um,
To offset that
yeah,
cost. And
yeah,
then you look at the fairness of it, Texas in particular being one of the areas where most of the
right,
immigrants come in.
right,
Is it really fair to that state to have to take the blunt of all of the influx of people that crowd that
right,
state?
right,
And I think a lot of even the governor of Texas, they started sending individuals, busing them to other cities, I
right,
guess, to kind of uh, even the playing field, if you would,
yeah.
as far as receiving a lot of those.
And I can't think, and I'm trying to. I remember some of the community was not saying an outrage, but they were upset because they
Right.
were using a facility or to house the immigrants, and they were not, the people in the community were not advised. They
Right.
were not forewarned that they were using that facility uh, to for the to house the immigrants. So hopefully, is not fair to the people that are citizens, and I'm so saddened by for the people that are trying to get here for better living conditions. And
Right.
um it's sad, but it something has to be done. I think, I don't know where the misinformation is coming from. Soon as President Biden came in office, it actually started there, and you know people were were saying that they thought that that's what he said, that when he became president that they would be able to come, and that was misleading. I'm sure
Wow.
that that's not what the president said. So it's just really sad that they're in a situation like that. You have children.
Right.
Um, it's just so sad. And anytime, I just think about parents and children being separated, and a lot of times, sometimes I think about slavery when you talk about these immigrants, because I just can read about it, and when you look at movies, but when you read about it and you research where parents and families were split,
Right.
um, uh, doing when you know children and families were split and sold during slavery. So, um, that's another thing we got to talk about, Mr. Dumas. Uh, you know, at some point where they're trying to erase history
History.
out of our
Right.
schools. They don't want everybody has a history. Everybody has it. Every race has a history, but to try to erase um, Black history out of the schools um, is absurd.
Right. It's almost comical to a degree that we're in we're in a situation where we're facing these kinds of things. Who would have ever thought, years ago that history, people would want to keep others from knowing, the real true
Truth,
history.
right, right. And
Uh,
I've always said, if we could get to, even in the schools, they teach history to a certain extent. But even I think that if our kids were taught history on the level that 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 they need to know, I think that some of this killing and stuff probably would not be taking place. You got to start young with them to to to
right.
to educate them and get this information in the system so they can understand where they come from. And so I always said that our race is a race that um, we have a rich history. We have so many people. We have so many people that want to be like us.
Right. We,
Um, but they've you talk about culture. They've embraced our. Some people have embraced our culture. They started braiding their hair. It's different things that like I said, we just have a rich history. We dominate just about anything that we do. We set our mind to. We're very smart and educated people, and so I just to take away to try to erase our history out of the schools. They don't want them to know about slavery. They don't. Well, it happened.
absolutely.
I'm saying it's not something that did not happen, and so they want us to just move on and talk about what's going on now. But you can't know where you're going if you don't know where you
Came
came
from.
from. So
It's
I
very
just don't.
important.
It's just very important. That's something that we have to fight, because we don't want them to erase Black history out of the schools, because that's part of who we are.
Right. And I was very happy to see, of course, the Reading Foundation put their building
Right,
downtown. I think there's going to be a special broadcast dealing with one of the individuals who has come through that program, who's now leading an orchestra,
right,
and
right,
so I believe that's going to be aired on WMAZ. But it's a very proud moment to see, young people who go on to do great things that have gotten, a lot of the cultural information that's been shared in this community, and
right,
to go
right,
forward and represent the whole country,
right,
from that. And so we applaud them in their efforts of putting a facility in place that can cultivate musical talent that's here, currently in our city. And
right.
so,
And we
um,
want we want you all to actually listen out. We're going to be hopefully next Monday we'll be sharing some information. We're going to be we spoke on it before. We're going to be having some town hall meetings throughout Middle Georgia, Macon, Bibb, and so just listen out for the dates that we will be actually having those town hall meetings. Those town hall meetings will is going to be involving a lot of different things. Um, and I remember the name of the committee is Economic Stability
right,
now. But we're going to be dealing with a lot of things, dealing with economic stability, housing, um, safety, and all of that is going to be a part of those town hall meetings. We've got people. We have to deal with evictions. Evictions is so major, is a major issue in our communities. And
Right.
I was just reading this past weekend where a person in the military um, was off in the military, and someone was living in her house while she was gone, and she can't even. They said she can't even evict them. That those are just the craziest laws that does not make sense. If you didn't if you didn't have let someone stay in your home, then you should be able to remove them from your home. That's just somebody that, to me, that's burglary.
Right.
If someone actually breaks into your home while you're not there, but they're treating it like that person is a resident.
Right. And also as it relates to people's deeds, if you have a home that's paid for, it's a good idea to check your deeds,
Right.
because they have incidents where people have
They have
actually changed
changed.
the deeds,
Right. They have
and
changed the
you got to
deeds,
go
and
to
you think
court.
that you own
Right.
your property. Yeah.
Right. You got to go to court to justify that property belongs to you.
Right. So I'm just people. If you are renting, and even if you're buying, when you deal with these property managers, you need to put everything in writing.
Absolutely.
I'm saying you need to put it if repairs, whatever, you need to put it in writing. You got some of these landlords that are not even giving uh, tenants receipts,
Wow.
and so they're not giving them receipts. And I know there are several properties that I was dealing with during COVID, they were not giving receipts. You should be giving people their receipts, because a lot of times we don't keep up with our money order slips. We lose them. They're in the car. You leave them in the car with them. But you need to get you a folder. It's so very, get you a folder just for certain things, your life insurance policies, your housing. You need to keep you a folder just for that, because I'm telling you, if you can't prove that you paid money, then you're gonna have to pay it again in order
Right.
to keep your place of living. I just dealt with a property last week where notices were sent out to tenants. These They own four different properties, so letters were sent out to tenants saying they owed money. The letters didn't say, it didn't say they owe. You owe $650 for the month of July, um, and whether it was for rent or whatever it was for. But it's just a letter saying, you owe $650 and you don't pay it by 3 days from now, we gonna file an eviction. First of all,
Wow.
you need to tell people why they owe it, and what do they owe it for.
Right.
That's not in the letter. So, you go and looking for a whole year to figure out what they're talking about, when if you specify in that letter that you owe $650 for July, then you can go find your July receipt. But most people that I spoke with, they were able to find their information, and then they said, well, they said they just balled it up and throw it in the trash can and said, if I said no, go back, get them the same piece of paper that they gave you, make them write something on it saying that you don't owe it,
Right.
because they can say that
They'll file it again.
you never addressed it, because you have to put stuff in writing.
Absolutely.
And with me, you know, I something happened. Somebody's, I don't know, it was a income tax or something came to my brother's property, and last week, and so I sent it back to the IRS. But what I did was I took a picture of the envelope. I sent it certified, so someone would have to sign for it,
Absolutely.
because you won't say that, you know, it came to this address and it was cashed or whatever, but I actually sent it back certified, so they would have to sign for it saying that they received it. So we just got to be proactive, folks. We have to start doing things in writing. You need to keep up with your receipts, because I'm telling you, you know, I just, just depending on certain, if it's Section 8 or whatever, but you got, the different rules. They can evict you for anything. They can just say that they don't want to renew your lease, and
Right.
you got to find somewhere to stay. So just be, you know, a lot of times when you are outspoken or whatever, they do want to invoke, but you have rights, and that's one of the things that we were in Atlanta fighting for, because a lot of times the tenants don't have rights when it comes to
Dealing with the
repairs and
landlords and
landlords. So
yeah,
it's just crazy. We gotta we gotta start being more responsible and keeping up with our information, because you know they make mistakes, and sometimes it's not a mistake. Sometimes
it's an intentional
it's an
act.
intentional act
Yeah.
to see if you're going to be able to find your receipt. So
And we know that, housing is a big issue across the country,
it
so
is. It
uh,
is.
because if you're evicted, it doesn't mean you're going to get back in a house,
No, because it's on your
it's
record
on your record.
as
And
an eviction, especially if money is owed. So people, just be proactive and keep up with your receipts. Do everything in writing. Stop dealing with these people, landlords, talking to them on the phone, and even if you text, that's proof, that's verification that they're texting back
right.
and forth with you. So
But those phone conversations don't really
because they're gonna
do a whole
deny it,
lot.
they're gonna say that they never spoke with you. So yeah.
Exactly.
So
Um,
I think our time is almost up, but we just want to make sure that we keep you updated on what's going on in the community. We want to encourage people to continue to vote.
Absolutely.
If you're not registered to vote, you need to register to vote. You can always contact our office. If you're a convicted felon and you've been released from whatever facility, and you've completed all your probation terms, your parole, and all your money is paid, you can restore your voting rights.
Yeah.
You can vote again.
And Maria sent us a little note here. Make sure you're registered to vote. If you move, change your name, you need to register again because you can only vote in the district you live in. So
Right.
those are some good tidbits.
Right.
And once again, we thank you for tuning in with us, and hope you're having a great evening, and we'll catch you on next week. Until then, stay safe.
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
You have been listening to the live broadcast of the NAACP with Gwinnett Westbrook and Mr. Dumas. Come join us next Monday at 4 o'clock p.m. on 980 WDDO.
The views expressed on this program are not necessarily the views of the Glory 980 AM, the Glory Media Group, LLC, WDDO AM, its staff, management, or advertisers, but are the views and opinions of the participants of the